everyone, and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're going to be watching two high-level teams battling it out here on one of my favorite maps of all time, none other than Erebos Lake. And today, spawning on the southern side is the blue team. It's going to be none other than the pro team. Yeah, the pro parentheses team. They're called the pro team, and definitely high OS as well, with the average OS being somewhere in the 40s and multiple members well above that and beyond that. We have some very nice, lovely commanders spawning on the front lines, led by, of course, the blue Cortex commander, spawning right up here in the water. A very interesting start on Erebos Lake, but definitely one that makes a lot of sense. It's going to be a commander that goes by the name of Highgain. Highgain leading the pro clan here today by going for some good old-fashioned Cortex boats, spawning in the water, grabbing the mechs, putting down the titles, and then going directly into that boat lab. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, the boats on this map are super critical. If you can manage to hold the boat lane, or if you can manage to even better win the boat lane, then you can almost always turn that into a win condition on Erebos Lake. Excited to see how Highgain is going to do here on everybody's favorite 3-lane, well, sort of, I don't know. It's a 2-lane, and then a 4-lane, and then a 2-lane again, water map. Going into a little bit of a gunboat and then into a constructor. On the other side of the map, spawning is the red Cortex commander, representing the SG team. SG, going to be playing on the northeastern side. It's going to be Wolrosekauf, or Wolrosekauf? Wolrosekauf, the red commander here. I'm probably butchering that name pretty badly, but the red commander is going to be the one who's sending out an early air scout as well as an early shuriken. We have a gunboat on the other side, by the way. Going to be thwarted here a little bit by the frigate. Ooh, build power. Will keep the tidal generator alive just barely as the frigate comes out in time to defend. Very, very nice little bit of micro right there from Highgain. Managing to keep that tidal gen alive is very important. Every single one of these is worth tons of energy to the blue commander, and that energy needs to go into these early boats. Otherwise, things look pretty rough. Scouting plane, wow, shot down by a pawn. Would you look at that? We have an early rascal coming across the map here as well. And the orange commander isn't slowing down either. Going to be moving forward. It's Che going to be moving forward here to grab these metal extractors. There's also a juicy 200 metal lying right on the floor. Fingertips away from Che. It rhymes, so it must be true. The mechs will eventually come up and running, and that escalates the naval situation even faster. Now, interestingly, we're just using this lab on its own to build a bunch of boats. Sliders are all the way down right here for the team as well. As, both of the red and orange commanders are going to be moving forward to try and lock down this naval position. Meanwhile, units coming across the map. Man, the red team looking aggressive today. We have the Rascal causing damage. It's a dead metal extractor from this Rascal. Pawns, and the commander will eventually clean that up as an engagement breaks out on the southern side here as well. Maroon commander Victor the 12th will end up resulting in a win right here for the purple commander Florio. Microing back damaged pawns. Wow. Pro-level gameplay right there, if ever I did see it. We have Row as well, or T-Row, going to be moving forward right here. The green commander going to try and claim all this juicy metal right there. You can see nearly 600 metal. I think he actually reclaimed a little. I think this is exactly 600 at the start of the game, going to be available right there, as well as the rocks on this side of the map, providing another couple of hundred. Going into that blue naval lab and going to be making a whole bunch of units to start contesting these high seas. Shuriken in the air as well, looking for an engagement, looking for a way to make themselves valuable, and they might have found it. Rovers on the other side of the map doing a little bit of damage. One Shuriken manages to find one of those, and it will be blasted apart by the Rocketeer here. The remaining Shuriken in red will whiff most of their shots, but eventually shut down the Rover on this side as well. Okay. I'll give it to the red team for the early game at the very least, because of course they actually managed to kill some stuff on the other side of the map. A metal extractor, I think they killed a constructor or a resbot somewhere around here as well. Puts them in a very small lead. Not a lead that's unrecoverable, right? But definitely a little bit of a lead. Now we have 3 commanders battling it out, about to be 4, battling it out in the midsection here. Che and Wola going to be going for Wola. We'll go with red here. Che and red going to be going ahead and contesting this midsection. We have 2 commanders now blasting away at the red comm here, trying to do a bunch of damage. Obviously, they're going to split up here to try and minimize that damage taken to themselves, as well as maximize the damage done to the red commander. I actually don't mind that, right? 2 commanders pushing into 1 commander means you actually end up in a pretty good situation. It means you end up with a whole bunch of damage on 1 commander, and then it only takes a couple of units to kill it. Or, of course, you can sacrifice one of your commanders to go knock that one down. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of commanders die in this middle island right here where these commanders are battling. A little bit of a run by attempted over here. Autopilot microing those units quite nicely here, so doing a great job of keeping them alive and keeping his side of the island very bot-free. Rompy catches autopilot while he isn't looking, though, and does manage to sneak one of those units through. Yep, blitzes are going to try and intercept at this point, but definitely going to have to play the catch-up game here, as now all of a sudden this single pawn has managed to find potentially a path into the backline. We've got these injured pawns, injured pawn and his guardian brother, I suppose, going to be keeping tabs over there. Ooh, and the blitzes do catch the pawn. Nicely done. All right. Solid deflection here. We've got a frontline bot lab, or pardon me, a frontline vehicle lab coming up right here for Victor 12, trying to accelerate the aggression here on the front line. Meanwhile, a rearward bot lab spamming out a whole bunch of units all over the place right here for the pink commander. Rompy trying just desperately to get some more build power situated here and start spending the metal. All commanders with their sliders down. And I have to say, I think this might be the way that Beyond All Reason starts to head. I wouldn't even be surprised if we start to see sliders down on regular 8v8 games. I know, it's a crazy thing to propose. But consider for a moment that you overflow a bunch of metal and suddenly your T2 commander, you know, they get a giant stimulus of metal all of a sudden, and your T2 comes out, I don't know, a minute earlier? 2 minutes earlier? Definitely interesting to think about. Then again, most newbie commanders are going to overflow a bunch of metal regardless, so maybe it doesn't matter to leave your sliders down. Really, only the pros are going to spend their metal quick enough that they can actually leave their sliders turned all the way down and not actually suffer some kind of consequence from it, so maybe it is for the best. The, you know, several hundred metal reserve here for all these commanders as they start to produce more and more units, going to try and limit their spending so that they're not necessarily tanking the bank here for their team, but obviously there's some issues that you have to deal with, right? Issues like destroyers on your front line, pro autopilot. I mean, what a situation. The Cyan commander here taking a bunch of damage. Oh, we've gone for a capture command. No way, we've gone for a capture command. Rompy manages to capture the laboratory, and it is forced to get degunned right there by autopilot. What a maneuver. Okay. An interesting way of forcing the conclusion right there. We will attempt a torpedo launcher. Yeah, I don't know. I think cloaking here just to try and hide the commander is probably going to be the best bet. We are cloaked, but it is trying to attack here as well. It's a tricky battle. Ooh, shuriken. Hey, nice play with the shuriken here. Are going to manage to paralyze that destroyer. Destroyer paralyzed means the commander can move in, and he's trying to get another capture command. Yeah, look at that. Gonna go for the capture command right here. Already halfway done. Ooh, so pesky. The trade will be accepted. Rompy moving in to connect against autopilot here, and boom, go both commanders as well as all of the army right here. The front line has been devastated, and that is a giant advantage to Rompy. All of a sudden, the medium tanks and even some riot tanks accompanying all this will push forward right here, making very short work of a whole bunch of those pawns, but the HLTs and LLTs, and as well as the MLTs, every form of LT will be up and running right here for Pro Florio on the front lines. And it will be quite nice for pushing a lot of this back, especially those slower riot tanks that don't move as quick. They're going to take a lot of damage from that HLT, and that's, well, exactly what you're looking for. Whole bunch of pawns trying to run on by. They might find some damage here in the form of a metal extractor, but honestly, trading out a bunch of these. Ooh, nice splitties there. Yeah, pulls a couple of the pawns aside to go snipe this radar tower as well as these mechs over here. How much more value can we find? We've sort of... Oh, okay, we've snuck another pawn through. Sneaking pawns in all around the map right here. We do have Elmerfudd and Highgain both standing right next to each other and repairing whatever that they can, just trying to repair up as many of these frigates and destroyers as possible, forcing Shez's army back, who has no destroyers. Wow. Okay, this composition is actually a lot weaker than I thought it was. The destroyers are sort of the win condition, right? The frigates can brawl all you want, but the destroyers are how you ultimately win the game because they kill the res subs, they kill these units efficiently. The frigates are almost always going to trade 1-to-1. Wole popping up on land here and degunning down whatever you can. Killing some metal extractors, setting up LLTs. Boom goes the red commander, it would appear. Is it the red commander? It's the maroon commander right there. Whole bunch of forces have been killed. Pawns overwhelm the base, though. We do have defensive pawns available, and the HLT will clean up a bunch of that as well. Ooh, Florio keeps the HLT alive, just barely. My goodness. New build turrets start up almost immediately right here as the purple commander is forced to semi-retreat from the front lines. At this point, the front line has been well won right here by the pink commander. I wonder if we're going to see, you know, any sort of naval shenanigans. Getting into the water and trying to assist our other commander. We have a little bit of a naval fight over here. What a funky transition for the tan and green commander. Whole bunch of land forces have already been built right here for Pro Shaman, and now we're going into, frankly speaking, quite a lot of build power. Way more than I think is really necessary here for Shaman, as these destroyers are already on the field. And basically all you need at this point is a couple of res subs and one of these scouting corvettes, the missile corvette, the Herring. in order to provide the vision that you actually need in order to push forward here. Don't think it's an issue really for Zar XT4 though. As long as we can recover from this by getting out of the water. Ooh, manages to reclaim the laboratory. Nicely done. Tank Commander going for those T2 mechs is actually stalled out a little bit here. A little bit of an APM stall. Needs to continue with those T2 mechs. His frigates are out, and as well a destroyer. So the way that you win this fight, the long-term way that you win this fight, is by using your frigates to kill the destroyers, getting your res subs underneath, and then reclaiming as much as possible. That's kind of the way that you chisel your way back into a match like this that is very dangerously close to the edge. And here we go. I mean, the trigger is pulled. Orange frigates are firing away, trying to kill as many of those destroyers as they can, but my goodness, there's just too much stuff here for the blue commander. The blue frigates, the blue destroyers, the blue herrings managed to sweep away the naval forces here for the orange commander. This is a well-won and hard-fought naval battle. Chad now forced to move the commander in, trying to comm bomb. There's no way that's going to happen. Boom goes the commander, boom goes the frigate, boom goes the base. The blue commander has now won the Navy game. We have a medium transport, a heavy transport, actually, technically speaking, going to be moving in here. It's the medium transport you can build, but it's the heavy transport of the T1 era, capable of picking up commanders and moving them, albeit incredibly slow. Rocketeer is taking down the LLTs that were set up over here, and still a gigantic brawl. Denying that geothermal is huge right now. Shutting down tons of consistent energy production, but my goodness, look at this. Whoa, flak truck coming in. You gotta set that comm down. Set him down. Boom goes the red commander as well. Flak trucks were in position. Whoa, pardon me. Were in position and managed to shoot down the red commander, who was going for a game-winning play right there, trying to degun down the T2, the AGO, anything valuable in the backline. But a couple of AA trucks make the difference, and just like that, suddenly the Seafoam Green Commander now has an advantage on this northern side. There's plenty of units and static defenses to hold back this T1, and then these destroyers can of course come in to help against this land-based unit composition here as well from Random Variable, who is going into some of those good old-fashioned T2 missile tanks, the Banishers, firing away their long-distance heat-seeking missiles of rampant destruction. Probably what they ought to be called. I don't think that's our official title, but it's pretty much how I feel about them. Tiger tanks. Yeah, doing a good job. Doing a good job of being alive, and that's really what the Tiger tank is credited for. Pawns running over in this direction, but yeah, there's nothing. Nothing to defend right here for the Cyan Commander. All the production was on the front line, and the front line has fallen. Don't get me wrong, though. Pawns are actually incredibly valuable against tanks nowadays, if you have a good spread on them. I'd like these pawns to be spread out quite a lot more here, but the offensive pawns coming in now from Rompy will be a huge assistance to the mechanized units here, as a bunch of those tanks manage to punch through. The beamer turret going to be in a whole bunch of trouble trying to carve away the armor on that Tiger tank, but the pawns accompanying all this managed to clean it all up quite nicely. What a tremendous advantage on the southern side. Sentinel units running well into the backline. We got metal extractors falling, wind turbines popping, E-converters detonating, and all the while beamer turrets trying to carve up these medium tanks. And you can see they actually do a pretty good amount of damage, like several percent per second. It is, frankly, though, too much damage, I think. Yeah, these tanks aren't going to stop. We've got bulls now to try and shut these down, but the tanks are well split. At this point, they're going to find value no matter what. They've made it to the backline with relatively high health. There's no way you're going to shut these down efficiently. Purple Commander's been handed the tanks in order to clean up their backline, but already the wind turbines, the metal extractors, all of it has fallen. This is brutal. Definitely a brutal leak, but you know what's even worse? Having an LLT pointed directly at your advanced geothermal right there. Alright. Sure. Because why not? You know, we don't want to damage the commander. We don't want to risk losing it. You could always capture it, too. Capture it and go for the self-destruct. I mean, that's always an option. Oh, okay. We are just going to degun it. Well, not sure what the point was there then, but we did manage to capture the we managed to capture the space here on land to make a landing for this commander. There we go. High gain moving into the base of the yellow commander, degunning down whatever possible, takes out the laboratory, takes out the T2, takes out the fusion, takes out the entire base and runs out of energy, but does still manage to hit the tanks. My goodness, the blue team manages to snatch it despite the giant leak on the southern side. The blue team with their commander shenanigans managed to push up onto the high ground, kill all the tech, and ravage the base right here of the Team SG. That was pretty quick. You guys want to watch another one? Why don't we take a look at another one here? This time, spawning in the southeastern time, it's going to be the SG team on Hellas Basin, trying to hold their very front line. Alongside the yellow and pink commander, it's going to be our red team leader. Once more, it's going to be Wola Rosakov, the red German hero here at 51 open skill, who takes the lead and takes charge of this red team. Excited to see what kind of shenanigans we can come up from this one. We've seen this map before. We've compared it often to a modernized Supreme Isthmus. As funny as that sounds, it is sort of an interesting take, but it definitely isn't entirely unjustified, right? This is definitely a map that has a lot of similarities to Isthmus. Obviously, this giant choke point in the middle, but it also has much more available space. So the Navy doesn't harass the entire Isthmus as quickly from both sides. You have or rather from one side. One side can't harass both sides of the Isthmus. You much rather have to rely on both navies being in control. And that does look like the blue team's strategy here, as it looks like Florio has already gotten into the water, gonna start building those tidal gens and gonna eventually power out a boat lab, I have to imagine. Tidal generators at 21 21 energy per second. Very useful, very powerful energy generation. Some of the most efficient in the game early on. I believe it's, I want to say 21 is as efficient as fusion reactors. It could be 22, though, or maybe 23. It's very close to fusion reactors in efficiency, and of course that consistent energy production is very hard to beat. It's so reliable and so nice to constantly have a stream of energy coming in, especially if you want to convert that energy into metal. You know exactly what your economy is going to look like at all times, and that's, well, it's comforting. Ticks here being used as both the offense and defensive tool right now, as the Cyan Commander looks to do a little bit of defense. Autopilot trying to get some ticks out in order to shut down the push right here from Random Variable. Random Variable, however, actually was only using these ticks as psychological warfare. Yeah, not intending to actually use these for any kind of actual damage. Just doing a little bit of scouting and trying to maintain control over the middle of the map right here. Rompy moving forward to try and claim these very valuable 4.0 metal extractors. In almost exactly the same way as another famous, very fast-paced map known by the name of Forge. This map features 4.0 metal extractors on one side of the Isthmus, and then 2.3s initially into 4.0s. It's a very strategic point map. Essentially, each of these metal extractors being the valuable point to try and control. He who controls the metal controls Arrakis. No, I think that's a different franchise. We have Resbots headed out now. Very ambitiously placed Resbots trying to head out, and, well, I imagine these were made to collect all the metal, but not being paid attention to by Rompy right here. Oh, no. Well, that's a crazy blunder in the early game right there from Rompy. I'd expect a whole lot more from a 42 open skill tournament winner, but it just goes to show that even the pros are human. Yeah, they might look like robots in the way that they play, issuing 1,000 commands per second, and, you know, as if they're using multiple keyboards and different, you know, extra hands, extra limbs. They are actually human, yeah, and they make mistakes sometimes. Elmer Fudd here, trying to expand with the commander. Obviously, what yellow random variable here is seeing is, oh, if your commander is exposed, or rather, if your commander is out on the front line, it means that your back line is exposed, and immediately sends the tick in there. I'd love to see some reclaim shenanigans, trying to eat up that tick. One construction tower can pretty much single-handedly kill a tick. Doesn't need to get much more complicated than that. Sometimes it does, though. Meanwhile, the purple commander effortlessly seizes control here of the high seas. Scouting about right now with a couple of these skeeter craft. Realizes that there's actually no opponent out here, so can be very greedy with the expansion. Sends the constructors forward and indeed goes for a triple con start right here, which by normal Navy standards would be considered extremely greedy. However, by, just the regular standards, or rather the matter of fact of this game, not so crazy after all here. We do have an air commander coming up here. Pro high gain, looking to get into that air. Went for a vehicle lab to get some constructors out early, and then went into the air, I should say. Has a couple of pincer tanks. Oh, interesting. Okay. Making use of that vehicle lab, trying to be efficient about it. By building a couple of those amphibious tanks, it is going to take about an eternity before they get across the map, but sometimes that's okay. Sometimes a well-timed pincer tank can pop out right when you're going for that T2 transition. It can be very, very brutal. And here we go. 4 minutes into the game, and we are on a T2 transition that we just mentioned. This is what teamwork looks like. This is essentially communism minus the communism. Putting together all of the team's resources into a T2 lab on the front line. Going to power at a constructor here and try and get some of those 4.0 mexes upgraded to, well, 16.0 metal extractors. Obviously a huge boost to the economy. Similarly, we do have a Cyan laboratory handed over here, actually. Praetor starting the laboratory, but then handing it over to Autopilot to actually control. Build power placed nice and neatly right here between these two commanders so that they can share in the co-op of a Zartek. So a bit of a different strategy. We're going a little bit greedier here for the red team, going a little bit more aggressive for the blue team. And I gotta say, lining up perfectly with the fact that we have blue Cortex and red Armada. Going for the Armada going for the more economic, long-term focus style, and the Cortex Commanders, of course, going for that good old-fashioned aggro-first sort of play style. Destroyer looking to find some value here, and it will, being able to fire away at those troops. It's not a lot, of course, but every little bit does help, and these early meatballs wandering around and firing their lasers are going to be quite nice. Nothing really in comparison, though, to the Tsar tank, which is already rolling out, trying to find some value, and it will as soon as it runs into these T1 units. There we go. Meatball's finding the gaps in the walls right there and managing to blast down that LLT, or, pardon me, that metal extractor once more, leaving behind nothing but debris. Debris, that's what that's called. Sheesh. Brightworks running out of words, having to make up some new ones. We do have an air scout right here. That's quite nice as well. Subtle, but very quite nice. Tsar tank, hit the field. Elmer Fudd doing a strategic retreat here, just slowly crumbling to buy time for that T2 tank to make all the difference on the front line. We are in desperate need of some difference on the front line here. As more and more of these T1 units build up and as more and more of those T2 units roll out, the Tsar tank is going to need to find some value. Boom goes the first shot of the Tsar tank and does collide in a big way with a bunch of those T1s. Second, third shots will collide with the Red Commander. Oh no. Not paying attention right there. The Red Commander takes tons of damage. Yikes. I believe that's a dead commander. Well, just like that, the Red Commander goes down. 4 or 5 shots and the Red Comp falls. And just like that, the tick spam starts up here as well in order to start feeding a whole bunch of intel back to the Tsar tank so it can start to trade out. Next commander on the chopping block will be random variable. We do have a bull tank up and running for the sniping of commanders as well here. Not quite as effective as the Tsar, but actually pretty comparable. Boom goes the green commander as well. Wow. A heated battle between snipers right here as the yellow comm tries to, well, successfully tries to take out the green commander, and as the blue commander, the cyan commander, manages to very successfully take out the red commander. Front line handed over to the yellow commander. We do have a Quaker on the front here as well. That Tsar is firing away. Pincer tanks have found their mark, moving into that back line, but we do already have those T2 mexes up and running, so those aren't going to be as easy to snipe. Pincer settling instead for these 2.3 mexes that haven't quite been upgraded in the back line. Very safe expansion. Going to go ahead and get those T2 mexes up and running from the T2 con here. Not the end of the world at all. And the AGO is coming up as well. Very risky because obviously this thing's right in the middle of all these bases, but also very, very powerful. I mean, if you imagine the energy production out of that thing is greater than a fusion reactor for less than half the cost. These two teams are perfectly in sync. This is so cool to see. Coastal torpedo launchers firing away, by the way, trying to connect with some of these frigates that are harassing the shoreline right now. Shaman just trying to do the very best to make sure that this stays well guarded. Bombers coming in to try and connect with some of the build power here. Not finding value, I don't think. Wow. Fighter tanking the bombs right there of the Maroon Commander. AGO gets a little bit of a hit, but defensive fighters will clean the most of this up. Whole bunch of fighters flying overhead the anti-air here as well is a bit of a bummer. Loses some of those fighters needlessly. Maroon Commander going to be in a little bit of a tricky spot. Surprised that we haven't gone for a amphibious lab here. Looks like the Purple Commander Florio will eventually go ahead and go into a T2 naval lab, trying to contest the high seas with some of those T2 boats. More likely than not, though, using that T2 lab to just build a constructor. Maybe one of those missile ships would be valuable here as well, but I doubt we're going to see a capital ship in this game. I would be surprised if we did anyways. Starlights are out and running, and they're basically the direct counter to that Tsar tank, so now it has to be very careful about where it moves and how it fires forward. If those Starlights start to connect, it can be very dangerous for the Tsar. The Starlights with a range here of 950 versus the Tsar's 650 means they have about a third of the range here. A third extra of the range here over the Tsar. Not a lot of time it buys you, but as long as they're spread out, the amount of damage they can do in a very, very short burst can almost immediately kill one of those Tsar tanks. It's probably something like 6 to 7 shots in order to kill one of those. Fusion reactor actually coming up right next to the AGO right here. Risky, of course, but you gotta risk it for that biscuit. The energy production is the only thing holding the green team, or well, the blue team and the green player back from producing more and more of these T2 units, as many as possible. Tremor is actually now firing away, raining death down upon Sheh, who has parked the boats right outside the range here of this Tremor. WTF, cries out one of the spectators here. You know, I think I'm in the same boat. That is a really bizarre play. I don't think Sheh was expecting that. Probably expecting harassment from another Tsar tank, maybe expecting something like a boatload of banishers. Pun well intended. Don't get me wrong, these banishers are finding the value. It's just very strange to see a tremor being used this way as coastal defense. Still not the end of the world, though, and there we go. I mean, it's going to start shelling away here at the position of these Starlights. As those Starlights walk into range, they're going to start taking heavy fire. Oh, and they're highly explosive, too. You really don't want to be losing these like this. Little surround right here from some of these units as well is quite nice. Most of them die to the friendly fire from the tremor, now raining shell fire on top of, well, each and every one of these. Oh. GG, cries out the spectators, and I think I have to tend to agree. Shez marching towards the laboratory. Bombers come in as well. None of them will make it past, though. No fighter escort or anything like that. We do have fighters coming in eventually, but Shez managed to get into the laboratory. Well, misses the D-gun on the LLT. Will hit the second D-gun, though, and boom goes the base as the orange commander goes down. Doesn't get the T2 lab, though. Banisher's in position to destroy that commander, and the laboratory remains, as well as a whole bunch of the build power. It's worth mentioning that build power is super critical here. Shaman has now moved back into the water. Okay. Green Commander maintaining position, building those Armada wind turbines and continuing to stimulate that economy. Meanwhile, a whole bunch of pawns have pushed through, though. We do have one of those missile boats up and available. It needs to start raining down on top of this base over here. It's kind of being idle, which is not good. Units not being used or units wasted. Pawns and salamanders. Salamanders and pawns. But the Starlight Army has done it. Ladies and gentlemen, who would win in a direct fight, 100 Starlights or 1 Tsar? The answer has been achieved. It's the Starlights. Their blue tachyon pulse weapons, cutting a pinpoint beam through literally anything in the universe, piercing the armor of even the commanders over time. The Starlights have managed to completely shut down this front line. Absolutely GG right here for the blue team. There's not really anything to deal with all these. The ticks are in position. Yeah, nicely done. AGO goes up and takes out all 3 of the bases right there on the front line. The commander goes down because of the ticks as well. And the blue team calls the resign vote. I don't think it takes much more than that to to really convince the blue team. We do have a little bit of a incursion over here on the right-hand side, but frankly speaking, there's no defenses. There's nothing left. The red team is free to take the victory here. GG. A strategically wonderful move, and we were even transitioning into these good old-fashioned platypus to go kill that missile boat here. A beautiful move going into those Starlights. Starlights are sort of the rock to the Tsar's scissors. Basically the perfect counter. Thanks a ton for watching, and if you do enjoy these pro-level teams going back and forth at it, let me know about it down below in the comment section. Always happy to hear from feedback from all you guys out there in the Etherverse, in the Beyond All Reason community. Feel free to join the Discord as well, and we also do the live streams Saturday, 12 to 4. I've been advertising those a lot, because we are headed into May, and May is the month of Legion, and as you may well know, if you're a member of the Brightworks community, we play Legion a lot, so I'm expecting a bunch of community members to be very, very well versed in these tournaments as they go show off their Legion stuff. Anyways, hope you have a fabulous rest of the day. Hope to see you in the very next game of Beyond Our Reason. Peace out, everybody.